All right, 100 Builders Unite coming in hot from Crestone, Colorado, here at my house with Pete. This week's video, by popular demand, is smarter, not harder, Earthships. And we're just going to give you a few tips on how to make it smarter and not harder. Pete, what do you think?
The first tip is know what it takes before you build. Educate yourself. Earthships are very unique and very labor intensive, so to kind of understand what you're going to walk into is a good thing with any situation, but whether that is just informing yourself by watching YouTube videos and following channels like ours or other folks. One that me and Matt used to watch a lot was Off-Grid Build with a guy by the name of Dan. So if you type in Off-Grid Build Earthships, he's got tons of information out there.
Great videos.
Another thing you could do is check out books, forums, lots of different forums, Reddit, everything from Permies.com, tons of information out there. So just know what you're going to do besides just pounding tires, because there's a lot more to it than that.
Doesn't Earthship have a couple books out there, Pete?
They do. I have them as well. Earthship Volume 1, 2, and 3 are good reference books that Mike Reynolds put together years ago. Definitely check them out. And then that kind of ties into, Michael Reynolds and Earthship Academy. And biotexture is, maybe...
Go pound a couple tires.
Yeah.
See how it feels.
Do the internship. Go to the academy. Get a experience of it. You know, if you take a month out of your life to go check out a build before you actually commit to maybe building over 5 years or 4 years or however long, it's a very little investment that you can do to get hands-on experience with something.
You can buy the blueprints from Earthship Biotexture, and they have an app now that Goldie downloaded when we were looking into stuff. So a lot of information out there on that.
Nice. Volunteer. There you can check out sites like Woofing, Woof USA. You can also volunteer for something more traditional like Habitat for Humanity. If you've never used a screw gun or swung a hammer or used a saw, you've got a lot to learn. So any sort of basic construction experience is going to benefit you a lot.
Okay, our number 2 tip is materials. Pete, what do you think?
Yeah, materials is big. Repurposing materials, reusing materials is a pretty big thing if you're doing a build on a budget. If you can have stuff lined up and storing your materials so then when you get to it, you're ready. Staying organized with all the stuff you're doing, whether that's making bottles and glass, trying to find, repurposed glass. Matt and Goldie, they found a lot of their glass repurposed up in Denver.
Yeah, I think about 90% or maybe, somewhere in between 80 and 90% of our glass is repurposed. Sliding glass doors off of Craigslist up in Denver. We luckily had a garage up there to store a lot of stuff. So that was a huge, smart move that we did. Have to rework some of those materials, but it was a great cost saver.
Even tires, just knowing where you're going to get your tires from. Earthships take a lot of tires. I think my build probably has somewhere around the neighborhood of 400 tires, and it's about 1,000 square foot. And Matt and Goldie's probably have
600, 650 or something.
Yeah.
Yep. And just even going off your blueprints, planning for your tires, make a list. Only grab the tires you need, because when you're done, you're gonna have a stack of tires left over that are hard to get rid of. Sometimes you have to pay to get rid of the tires you got for free sometimes if you don't have a place for them. So another tip on that one.
Yeah, and then kind of going back to just building up all your materials and staying organized is any sort of job site that you walk onto, whether it's a traditional job site or whether it's an alternative job site, you can always kind of tell if someone's organized stuff. It can still be a lot of stuff, and maybe to the regular person it looks like it's a pile or a junk pile, but if you know where things are, that's good. If you got things covered up in tarps so it's not just getting wasted away in the weather, that's good. So just be smart about organizing all your stuff.
Make sure you tie those tarps down, folks, so you have a nice little $20 kite blown in the wind. Another thing, too, is I'm a huge fan of making lists and knowing the next step. So if you have any construction experience, that's also going to be a smart move on your end. And with that experience, knowing what's next and knowing what materials to have out, I find it really hard to place materials out on a property. It's tough decisions because you don't want to move something 100 times. Try and be strategic. Try and know the next steps on where you're placing stuff for your materials. And one more thing I wanted to say on materials is plan your town runs. This is going to go back to making a list. If something hits you in your mind, take out your phone, go to the notes, write in the things you need at the store, make a list. I usually carry a little piece of notebook and notepad in my back pocket, and if it comes to your mind, write it down, and plan your town runs. A lot of these Earthships are being built kind of out in the middle of nowhere because that's where our pockets of freedom are. And town runs, you don't want to be running a town 100 times a day. You just want to do one, a day max, or depending on where you are, one a week.
Okay, number 3 is time, tools, and labor. Smarter, not harder. It's definitely good to kind of try to have every advantage that you can. With time, Earthships take a lot of time. If you think that you're going to be out there pounding 7 to 10 tires a day by yourself, you're probably wrong.
10 tires a day is very good for tires, I think. That's a crew of 4 people doing 10 tires a day. I think that's good for 4 people.
Right.
What do you think?
I agree. Having a group of people coming to pound tires can really help things in the progress of the build.
Totally. And even when you're doing your first few courses, they're normally with bigger tires. And what we did on ours is sometimes you can't fit all your, especially when you get to the second, third row. So when you start to get to your second or third course tires, you'll realize too that you'll need a spacer block where all your tires aren't lining up. And you can either pour a concrete spacer block or you can fit a squishy. And you'll figure it out as you go how long a squishy takes as opposed to a concrete block. Sometimes you need to keep moving that day, and sometimes throwing a squishy in there is going to save you time to get started on your next course.
And another thing with the tires kind of ties in is dirt work. As we've shown in a couple different videos, building up Earthship berms or even just doing general dirt work as you're doing the tires is huge. So if you have the ability to rent a machine, or if you know an operator or a neighbor that knows how to run a machine and pay them, or do a work trade to have them come over and help, fill up the tires initially with dirt with a front end loader or something like that, or obviously just building up the berm. If you think you can do everything with a shovel, you're probably going to go crazy.
Yeah, don't be fooled. We talk about this. There is a lot of dirt work that comes along with Earthships, with battering your walls, sticking your insulation and your vapor barrier back there. It takes dirt work, and you can put 10 people on a shovel, and one scoop of the machine will outdo that any day of the week. Call me for your excavation needs.
There it is.
And tools. Make sure you got all the tools you're going to need. Go through. It might take you a little while. If you have experience building, you kind of know what to foresee, but basic tools on the job is going to save you a lot of time, and that's a pro tip.
Another thing is your own time. Time is money, so no matter what you're doing, think about it that way, where know what the next step is of your build. If you don't have an idea of what comes next after pounding the tires, then you're kind of just sitting there and wondering and pondering things, right? Kind of have a good vision of what the steps are, whether it's plumbing next or electrical next or framing or whatever it is. Just have an idea of, see the big picture, not just the next thing in front of you.
It's a lot to bite off. It's a lot to chew. And if you do have the time at night, go through your roofing system. And, there's a lot of roofing politics. Figure out the best way in your area that your roof is going to suit you. That's a huge one that I had an issue with. That took a long time for me. And, just knowing an electrician, having a basic knowledge of electric, of wiring, study that stuff if you have the mental capacity for it. And plumbing, all this stuff comes in stages. You normally do an in-ground, an in-wall, and a final. That's for plumbing. And electric is kind of the same basic idea. And it can be very frustrating and confusing. And I wish you guys the best of luck on just that stuff. And that's why we're here, is to answer multiple questions. You want to say anything, Pete? I got 2 more things.
You go ahead.
And yeah, and the devil is in the details. That's our buddy Steve Storm kept saying that. And if you're a builder, if you're not, you'll learn that term. Figuring out your details, how you're gonna, trim your glass into the front of your house, how you're gonna shed all the water, how you're gonna caulk your glass, however, having a basic idea of how everything's gonna look finished is another pro tip, I think. And then I just wanted to mention too the building triangle that a lot of builders talk about. And it's pretty much, you have a triangle and it's cheap, it's fast, and it's well done. And you only get 2 of those. So for example, if you want it fast and cheap, it probably won't be that well done. But if you want it well done and cheap, it's going to take you longer, so it's not going to be fast. There's an example of that. So just keep that stuff in mind.
Great point.
Yeah. What do you think, Pete? How do we close her out?
I think the last thing that comes to mind with smarter, not harder is don't bite off more than you can chew. You've heard us say this before in previous videos, but just kind of think about it. If you've never built a house before, this could be one of the hardest things that you've ever done. If you have a little bit of construction experience, it can still be pretty hard. So think simple, depending on what your budget is, if you're building out a pocket, what your time frame is. We've said this before, but kind of think whatever you think it is times 2. So if you think it's going to take you $75,000, it might take you $150,000. If you think it's going to take 3 years, it might take you 6 years. So just have an expectation of, what the project and the size of stuff is. Another thing is build simple. If this is like a dream home and Earthships are super cool and you see something that inspires you to want to do this or that, or, big round room off to the side of here, and then this type of ceiling specifically, be able to compromise. If you build something that has a whole bunch of different angles or pitches on the roof, it's gonna be harder. If you build something like a rectangle and face it south and it has 4 sides, it might not be as cool as a sculptural circular house or something like that, but it's gonna be easier to build with dimensions of things like, lumber, with materials like sheathing, 4x8 dimensions, things like that. Just think about it in a way where you can compromise what you ultimately see.
Just adding on to that is a wise man once told me is perfection is the enemy of done. You're going to have to turn your cheek to some things, especially if it's your first build. There's a ton of stuff in my house that I look around, and if I knew then what I know now, you can play that game all day. So just don't be afraid to just get her done, And network. Use your networking skills. Huge tip. You need help. Get people to help you. Network. Put up flyers in your local coffee shop. Put up flyers in your local health food store or your grocery store.
The last bit of it with not biting off more than you can chew is kind of have an idea for a budget. Things definitely change. So if you're planning on building over 2 or 3 years, the price of metal that you maybe priced out the first year is not going to be the same maybe the next year, or wood or whatever. But just have a general idea of how much things cost, and then realize, hey, I know how much it costs. I'm not made of money. I'm paying for it out of pocket, or every month I'm putting this much money into it. Then you can really get an idea of how long it realistically is going to take you, because builds that drag on can just be soul sucking in a lot of different ways. Just having an idea of what you're up against always makes you a little bit more prepared for the long haul.
Okay, we're going to close it out with that, and we wish you guys the best building, and work smarter, not harder. Owner Builders Unite. Like and subscribe for more content. Thank you so much.